All right. So this is going to be the third part of this interrupted piece of shit stream. Um, let's see if it works without a hitch. Um, yeah, it was some technical difficulty. You know, my internet does not suck. I pay good money for that. And I don't even use wire. I don't even use a Wi-Fi connection. I always have everything hardwired. So, um, no, it was definitely a YouTube thing. It was not my internet. But anyway, not sure where we left off on that, but what I'm saying is, even though you have more women in STEM, you would think that would be good for lonely STEM nerds, but it's not, because the women segregate themselves. The women choose to isolate themselves into basically their own covens. Okay, it's like that line in Futurama where, I don't know, is it Fry? He goes, look, to like Zoidberg and Professor Farnsworth. He's like, look, we may not be a traditional family like the Joneses, not like the Joneses next door, the lesbian coven down the street, but we're still something. Um, and that's how it is. Like I said, the women isolate themselves. So you think having more and more women in at university or whatever, oh, university is 2/3 women. That's going to be a paradise for men. No, because the women isolate themselves. The female students isolate themselves. Even in things like STEM, they isolate themselves. They don't want contact from men. This idea that women are crashing men's spaces, they're invigilating themselves into male-only spaces. It's not true. Okay, they I don't know how much clearer they have to make it. I mean, it's basically to the level of the Berenstein Bears book cover, where the boys build a treehouse or a fort and they're peeking out and they have a hand painted sign that says "No girls allowed." I mean, that's basically the level we're at right now. Um, like I said, the only people that you'll see studying together, male and female, are the Asians. Only the Asians do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, if I could go back and tell my 13, 14-year-old self anything, it would be, do not fucking waste your time with STEM. Don't do it. Let me know in the chat. I mean, it looks like everything's working, so let me know in the chat if you hear me. Um, but yeah, it's always this idea that everybody, all these migtards, and that's the only word I have for it, is migtards. Migtards who claim women are trying to infiltrate male-only spaces, and they're trying to pick up somebody to they're trying to pick up a man. No, they're not. They have gone out of their way. They have they have isolated themselves as much as possible. I mean, most universities, they have not only female only dormitories, meaning the entire complex is given over to women, but at some places they have female only gym hours. So, it's like a co-ed gym or a recreational area. Couple times a week they close it off for women only, meaning men are not allowed. Men are not allowed in. So these women have really made it abundantly clear that they do not want anything to do with men. And moreover, insofar as any males are having success with women, it isn't these high T super giga chads. It's the softer manicure type. Like it's amazing for being adults. Adults. On the one hand, they have the big bowl of condoms. The big bowl of condoms, because you're an adult now. You're an adult. You should be having fun and exploring your body. They got the big punch bowl filled with condoms. Always too tiny for me because I need those big golden foiled, golden ticket magnums for my big fat cock. Um, Not those little tiny Durex things for a little fucking needle dick. Um, Need that Willy Wonka golden ticket. Um, the events that they put on are like very oddly like geared toward children. Like you get these events sent to you, like a list of events through email. Just you're on the listserv, right? You never unsubscribed even years later, so you still get them. And the events they put on are so childish. Like sometimes you'll be having uh they'll be having these like events like craft making, and keep in mind these are geared either toward undergraduate or graduate students, but it's this weird infantilization where come together and make crafts, come together and make a we'll teach you how to bake a pie, we'll teach you how to bake a pie. And they'll then send out photos the following week, check out what are, and these are not, I mean, they're not even 18. You're talking they're at least 22, 23 if they're grad students. And it's like, oh, it's a great way to meet each other and socialize. And you're like making a pie. And then they send photos of the people who participated, and it's mostly female. And then you get a couple of fucking, I mean, soy boy doesn't even come close to describing it because these guys, it was like one, the thing I looked at, it was in my email, and it was like an Asian male, a bug man, fucking bug man, and then some big roly poly white guy, big fat roly poly. But what I'm saying is most of these events are geared toward women, or they're just very infantilized. Very infantilized. I mean, anybody who thinks that in 1968 or 1972 at U.S. University campuses that people were making arts and crafts and doing shit like that. No, they were going to like a Led Zeppelin concert. They were smoking weed and hanging out and talking philosophy to the wee hours of the night. They weren't making like fucking crafts and shit, just coloring books for children. Um, everybody's got to have their safe space. But I don't know how much clearer women have to make it that they really aren't interested in men. I mean, they're really not. Um, let's take a look here at the comments. I've been neglecting those. I'm in university, and I can tell you that if you are not harmless, you're not going anywhere. I've seen it myself. Yep. Uh, Somebody also says, at first I thought Tinder changed the dating landscape, but when I look at couples in real life, a lot of below average guys are dating beautiful women. Yep. I see it all the time too. For all the mockery about soy boys who don't, soy boys getting cucked by their wives. No, actually, the soy boys, for the most part, they're the ones having the success with women. It's like an internet meme. Everybody who is more masculine, they like to, you know, parody, or they love to mock the soy boys. The soy face, where the guy's got his glory hole mouth open, waiting for a cock to be put in. Um, and they've just got that melting candle face with the patchy hair surrounding their open maw, so they kind of look like a hairy sarlacc pit. Um, those types of pathetic men are actually the ones who are dating women. That's and it's not, well, that's all that's available. Isn't it so sad for women? And you hear these other comments, oh, isn't it usually expressed by like older people, boomers or Gen X, and they'll be saying, oh, isn't it so sad that these millennial women have to settle for these soy boys? No, no, you're not listening. You don't get it. They're not settling for these soy boys. They are choosing these soy boys. They are choosing them. Okay. They find masculinity outmoded, outdated, antiquated, frightening, um, dangerous. They don't like it. They like the soy boy who wants to make a little pastry, who wants to have a scone, who finds that cupcake decadent or delightful. Okay, ooh, this is a decadent cupcake. That is what that is that is what women want nowadays. It's not that they're settling. Oh, all the real men are gone. No, oh, that's woe is me. No, that they go out of their way to be around either outright gay males or the effeminate soy boys. Okay, they are not inserting themselves around the masculine type men. They're not. Somebody says soy boys are always around women. They are women's go-to guys. Yeah, and I mean, I would say proximity. How do you get into a relationship? Proximity and frequency, right? You have to be around them. You have to be in the same class. You have to be. Oh, fucking A. Did this fucking thing cut out again? Looks like we may be having problems. Maybe not. Maybe we're back. I swear my internet connection is good, but um, what was I going to say? These women, they either go for outright, like I said, gay men, or the soy boy type, and for all the mockery and ridicule and how they're pilloried by people like Roosh and Aaron Clary and Davis Arini and all these people, that's what's in vogue. Okay, that's what works. That's what works nowadays is uh, being that type of male. So it's mm, I don't know what to say. I wish there was some better conclusion that could be drawn. Somebody here says, I was out last night and saw so many women with chads. Where do you live, Wings? Where do you live? Because I don't see this at all. They think they're cool retro lumber sexuals. They think the beard makes them more of a man. Yeah, they can't grow a beard. That's the problem. It always comes in patchy. And that's I mean, I don't know why people can't. They can't seem to notice that people are getting uglier. And whenever I try to bring it up, people are always just so dismissive. They're like, "So what? So what?" Uh, it's like, isn't that a Metallica song? So what? Um, but like I said, you can control for anything, and it's weird, especially like on television, if you watch whatever news channel and you look at who they have as like guest speakers or anchors on these news shows, and these people look so fucking hideous. Whether it's Anderson, Aids Cooper, Wolf Blitzer, who's his skin is whiter than his beard, which I didn't think was possible. I mean, these people do not look well. And then every person they interview, some intelligence person, everybody just looks like a cone head. Nobody has any hair. Nobody. I mean, nobody has any hair. They've all just got this. They all look like a dick, like a big dick, big cockhead. Um, that's what they look like. Okay, like it was a novelty with Captain Picard. Captain Picard, the bald look, it worked. And that was what 30 years ago, and Captain Picard was already what 55 back then. These people are fucking bald from the age of 30. I mean, even younger. I mean, I see fucking some undergraduate students who are in their early 20s. They've already fucking their hairlines like on the top of their fucking heads. So everybody, their faces just look droopy and melted and just other, just very unhealthy. I don't know if it's chronic inflammation or what, but these people do not look. Oh shit! The person who said he sees women with chads, he says he lives in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Well, isn't that out in the oil patch or the bramble patch or the cattle fields of Canada? That's definitely not Toronto. That's definitely not Vancouver, and that's definitely not Quebec, Montreal. Sorry, Montreal. So, um, I mean, I think people generally say that outside of those three cities, right? Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. I mean, the population of Canada is 30 million. And once you subtract those three urban areas, you're not left with too many people. So Winnipeg is probably akin to, I don't know, what is it? What is it? What is that city? Carson City in Nevada or Wyoming? Like somewhere in the middle of like a Montana or something. It's probably akin to that. So I could see Chad still doing well out in the rural bramble patch, but not in anything close to being an urban area. Um, Yeah, if women didn't like soy boys, they wouldn't exist. And they don't just exist, they proliferate. They proliferate. Um, but nobody seems to be aware that people are just getting uglier. And like I said, you can control for everything. You can control for race, control for age, control for intellect. Okay. You will be shocked if you compare, say, people at a physics conference or in a physics department, whether they're faculty or students today, at the same university. Like I said, control for things, control for geography, control for every factor imaginable. Look at, and they've had photography going back 150 years. Look at the faculty members of, say, the physics or chemistry department from 1900 and compare them to the faculty, the professors in the same department at the same university today. Do the same thing with students, okay, graduate students. They have photos of people in each department. Again, control for it. You would say, well, physics always attracts the nerds, right? So the people who studied physics in 1900 or 1930, they would have been nerds just as they are today. They'd be very unattractive, very unattractive. No, if you look at photos of the faculty and the students in mechanical engineering. Keep in mind, these departments have existed for over 100 years. Okay, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering. These have existed at most universities for well over 100 years now. I mean, some of the newer ones, if it's nano something, nanotechnology or bioengineering, those are maybe newer. But the other departments, they've definitely existed for well over 100 years. And you will be shocked. And it's not just engineering. Like I said, control for things. Compare the literature department, the English department, compare the humanities. The people who are faculty members or students in philosophy, English, whatever, today to those who taught in the same department 100 years ago. These people don't even look these people don't even look like they're of the same species. You look at photos of people from 100 years ago, and even if they studied something that most people would mock as, oh, that's something, that's pussy. Only pussies study poetry and English. No, if you actually look at the poets of the Romantic era, it's going to be some guy with like a huge bushy beard. The guy's got like really deep set eyes. He's got a very pointed, aquiline nose. Um, then you compare it to the people today, and they're just bloated. They have no facial structures, just a blob, just like a melted candle. They have no hair. They're bald. They look inflated, distended, like a whale that's washed up on the beach and that's ready to explode. I don't know how you account for it. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's ironic in an age when, as camera and Photoshop technology, everybody can filter and doctor their images to look better. Everybody's getting uglier, and then you compare to these photos from the fucking Civil War, where it was people had the person taking the photograph, they had to go underneath a curtain and expose the plate, and people had to hold still for like 10 or 20 seconds while the exposure was completed. And the guy would duck underneath the curtain. And today, with all the editing software and the 50 megapixel camera, CCD device, and super fast exposures, people look like shit. They really do. They look really unhealthy. Um, Somebody says men are getting uglier more so than women because they are less immune to environmental hazards than women. That's what I noticed too. It's maybe difficult to comment on women because now you have the proliferation of makeup, which cosmetics, which didn't exist 100 years ago, or was very well. No, I take it back. I mean, cosmetics have existed since ancient Egyptian times. I mean, Cleopatra's always portrayed with eyeshadow, right? I mean, they had dyes and things like that. So I take that back. I have to redact that. I mean, they've had cosmetics for thousands of years, but not to the degree, and not for the average average person, average woman, that, for a few bucks you can look totally different. So, and the other thing is, I mean, with hair, hairlines, it's difficult because women can always have bangs and stuff like that if they grow their hair long. So, is their hairline as fucked up as the male hairline? Difficult to say. But yeah, it seems like men are being what is it called? Disparate impact. Um, they're being disproportionately impacted by whatever's going on. I mean, a lot of these people are downright hideous. I mean, they look like ghouls, and it's not an age thing. Like I said, people weren't supposed to look horrible as they got older. I mean, getting older was not a pleasant thing, but again, when you see photographs of elderly people from the 1800s, the resolution of chemical photography was quite good. It's not like, well, it's low res, so you can't see how ugly they were. No, chemical photography was very high resolution, actually. Um, but even elderly people, like in these older photographs, they look okay. Like they look healthy. They still have their hair. You look at photographs of like Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, or any of these Confederate generals. These were not young men. These were men in their 60s. And they had, a full bushy beard, a full head of hair. It would be like, hey, if I looked like that at age 67, I'd be okay with it. And it's like I said, just dig up, just explore things. Look at photographs of German generals. Okay, like I'm into history, so if you look up photographs of generals from, and not necessarily World War II because they pretty much were executed or committed suicide, but look at the ones who were sort of the leading generals of World War One. General Hindenburg. There were others too. I have to find this other guy, but these guys they started their military careers during the Franco-Prussian War of 1871. That's when they were like a young first enlisted man, and they served all the way through World War One. And you see these guys when they're like 75, 85 years old, and they're still dressed up in their military uniform. They're walking upright. Maybe they have a cane or something, but they're still able to go on like military parade. It isn't that they're in a wheelchair. It isn't that they're bedridden. These guys are like 82 and they're still like going on a military parade or whatever. They're still in their full uniform. They look like they could kick the average 20-year-old guy's ass from today. That's how they look. um for all this talk, oh, better nutrition, people are getting stronger and taller. I don't see it. I mean, a lot of these guys, you look at like General Hindenburg, born what, 1850? Born 1850. The guy was 6'7", 6'8". Um, so your speculation is as good as mine as to what's actually behind this. If it's dietary, if it's environmental, if it's just bad breeding practices, women breeding with men who otherwise they wouldn't. Yeah, because I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, how can you discount bad breeding practices if women are deliberately choosing pathetic men to breed with, to reproduce with? Well, that's what their children are going to look like. I mean, if you want to breed a longer wiener dog, you choose two long wiener dogs and you breed them. If you want to, breed a giant Irish wolfhound, you find a really big Irish wolfhound to be the father. I mean, isn't that the whole concept of these race horses that are valued at $10 million for their semen, because everybody wants to have another secretariat. So the horse's cum is worth $10 million a cup. Um, so that's the idea, that they're going to father another secretariat. So they keep these prize stallions, to impregnate the mares. And the same thing with like cows. The farmers decide, okay, I'm going to have this bull inseminate these cows, and the cows will be bigger and produce more milk. But apparently that doesn't apply to humans. Love is love. Love is love. Okay, well, apparently somebody should say love is love when it comes to wiener dogs, because maybe the wiener dogs don't want to be bred longer and longer and longer. Maybe maybe the horses don't want to be fucked by the Secretariat. Maybe they want to have a little retard horse, just like human mothers do. You know, maybe they want to have a little. Maybe they want a horse that can compete in the Special Olympics. You know, or bag groceries, and do it with gusto. But it's weird. You know, it's weird how we decide to intervene with animals and plants. You know, a lot of these, like whatever, you take corn for instance. Corn never was meant to have an ear of corn that was like a foot long that you would eat corn on the cob. It was basically bred and bred and bred over successive generations from what? Wild maize. And you went from something that was a little tiny mini corn cob and you bred it into a big fucking ear of corn. Nobody said, what gives you the right? What gives you the right? What gives you the right to do that? Love is love. You can't be telling those bees which flowers to pollinate. You can't do that. That's wrong, okay? Love is love. You can't. What gives you the right? Well, nobody asked the question, okay? When it came to domesticating uh, the wolf into a dog, nobody said, well, should we do this? Should we do this? What gives us the right here? They just did it, okay? They took a puppy from the wolf, and the puppies that seemed kind of like they were going to bite your finger, they killed those, and they kept the docile one. And they did the same thing with pigs when they took a wild boar that they captured out in the woods that was fucking violent and was going to gore you with its tusks. They let it reproduce, took its little piglets, and they took the weakest, smallest, scrawniest little piglet, and they let that one reproduce. They killed the others, and that's how you go from a boar to a little pink piggy. So nobody ever asked, well, what gives us the right? Are we allowed to do this? Maybe the pigs should be allowed to, breed with whomever they want. Why should we intervene? Nobody asked that, but apparently when it comes to humans, we have to just let love is love, man. Love is love. Okay, well then don't complain when your kid has autism. Okay, don't complain when your kid has little chicken bones that break. Don't complain when your kid comes out gay. And is a genetic dead end. Don't fucking complain. You chose this. You chose it. Let's see here. Go through the comments. Yeah, somebody says it's definitely all the chemicals today. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of unavoidable. You can try to minimize it. You don't drink out of plastic bottles. Well, but think about how many people are drinking tap water. I mean, just think you're drinking water that's pumped through miles and miles and miles of corroded pipe that was put underground over 100 years ago. That's what you're doing. You're drinking water that has passed through miles of torturous copper lead pipes that were put underground 100 years ago. I mean, it's kind of amazing that the water doesn't go bad. Like if you let water sit for a day or two, it goes, what is the term? It goes rancid. I mean, you have microbes and anything that's floating in the air basically just starts to incubate in the water. But for some reason, pumping water through corroding, flaking copper lead pipes. That's good. That's good. Keep drinking that. Um, no, I disagree. People in the past definitely did look better, even at an older age. I mean, you can find photos of, fur trappers from the 1800s or gold prospectors, old 49ers. Uh, Even if they had like a big gray beard, they were still able-bodied. I mean, these guys were swinging a pickaxe and looking for gold nuggets in the in the stream bed, and these people were elderly. Okay, I don't think the average 30-year-old could do what a 65 or 70-year-old grizzled prospector could do. Going up to the Klondike or going out to California during the gold rush. So um, I think people are definitely getting older and sicker than ever before. So I think people did have better, just overall better health, better aesthetics in the past. I don't. If you look at photos, I don't see a lot of ugly people. I really don't. Um, whether they're children, street urchins who had a very hard life, people who endured famines and endured other things. They look pretty healthy. They look pretty robust compared to people today who just look bloated and distended. Um, Somebody says a lot of the guys in my mom's high school 90s yearbook from a small town are more attractive than the suburban high school I went to 4 years ago. Only four guys were decently attractive and only one was Chad. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, there's something definitely going on. You can look back at yearbooks from whatever, the 70s, 60s, 50s. So you just keep going back and back. I mean, they've always had yearbooks. They've had yearbooks going back, since whenever they had photography. Um, so it's amazing the devolution that's taken place. Um, and like I said, you can control for things. Look at the law school yearbooks. Look at Harvard yearbooks. Look at student protesters from the 60s versus student agitators today. I mean, you control for things. Um, Look at people from the same department, the humanities department. It's uncanny, and it's like nobody seems to notice this. This is sort of you would think, a big deal. I mean, something's causing it. But focus on more important things. Focus on how much money you're making. Focus on your retirement account. Do you have enough money to retire? Because I'm sure you're all going to live to be 100, 110 easily. Ray Kurzweil said so. Ray Kurzweil said so. He's not just trying to sell more books. No, why would a Jewish author want to sell more books? That's not what they do. Come on, Jewish authors do not try to get on the New York Times bestseller list. They don't do that. They're more principled than that. Come on. In 5 years, where do you see the manosphere? It's not going to change people who are incel. Even if they shut down channels and things like that. But will people finally let go of the illusion that they're going their own way? I don't know. Or maybe they'll still cling to this. Like, I could get a woman, I just choose not to. Maybe things will get so weird that, like I said, remember how it used to be put down, like when you would say, "Oh, don't be a faggot," that's so gay. Maybe the new slur, or the new put down amongst the Gen Z kids will be, uh, "Oh, that's so hetero. Don't be a straight. Don't be straight." Um, I mean, that's kind of how it's already going. I mean, look at how gays are portrayed in the media. If you didn't know better, gay people don't even have sex. For gay people, it's strictly it's all about emotional connection. It's all about love. It's all about caring for one another. Only straight people are having sex. Uh, that's the that's the that's the job that the media has done. Like, love is love. Well, if you look at how gays behaved, like in the 60s and 70s, like meeting up in bathrooms and meeting up in public parks, oh, that's not love. That's sucking dick in a bathroom stall. That's not love. And now we have straight people hooking up. You got to hook up on Tinder. Maybe, like I said, if you're lucky, you go to a club, and oh, maybe the stars align and you get your dick sucked in the toilet. With a nice turd in the toilet. Just ignore that. It's real romantic. Real romantic. You get head from a stranger in a bathroom. So it's kind of like we've traded roles, all of these photos, and it's like two gay dads with their little adopted Chinese baby. Like, that's not weird at all. That's not weird. And it's like them shirtless for some reason. For some reason, they're always shirtless in the bathroom with the little Chinese baby, or the little black baby. That's not weird at all. That's a totally normal life. But meanwhile, heterosexual families, not having it. They're weird. They're heterosexuals. They just they're all about the Tinder and Bumble and hooking up. So in 5 years, I don't think things will be better for men. I think maybe men will, because this is the one thing that I never understood. It's one thing to say, look, I really have no chance of getting a family or having a family or meeting a woman that I actually want to be with. But then they're like, well, you need to focus on money. And you see this with everybody. Angry MGTOW, Davis Arini. Advice to young men: make bank. Again, why do you have to sound like a rapper for a black rapper from the 90s? Oh, you got to make gold. You got to be stacking those fat stacks of cash, those Benjamins. Um, if you're living a very modest life, there really is no reason for you to work hard. Why are you going to give yourself an ulcer working 60 hours a week? Just just cruise through life, okay? Just work. Like I said, we're probably going to get $15 an hour minimum wage. Um, I would say, universal health care. I mean, just look at the changing demographics in this country. I wouldn't be setting myself up to make a factor of two more than the guy who's working at Walmart. Okay, and that's where we're headed. So I would hope that in the manosphere or whatever, there's some realization that the only upside to kind of being TFL incel and having women kind of obsessed with their careers is, hey, I can kind of sit back, I can coast. I'm not going to work hard. I'm not going to bust my back, studying or working hard. I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to let women who are obsessed with their careers pay for my Medicaid, um, pay for my Xanax, pay for all my other meds, pay for my Obama phone, and I'm just going to coast through life. So I don't get these people who are saying you need to make money. You need to make money. No, you don't. You have no reason to. You also need to kind of accept the fact that you're not going to live to be 100. These people who are in their 20s or 30s, you're not having a quarter life crisis. Okay, you're insane if you think you're only a quarter of the way through the tank. You're more like half. You're halfway through. You're halfway through. You're not having a quarter life crisis at age 30. Okay, you're not a tortoise. Let's see here. Women have more tattoos than men these days. I believe amongst millennials, it's twice as common for women to have tattoos than men. That was a stat I saw somewhere. Amongst older people, say baby boomers, the people who had tattoos were usually like kind of like people who had been in prison, or they were Hell's Angels, they were bikers. Think of Bon Scott of AC/DC. That was a rare thing for him to, for even a rock singer to have tattoos. I mean, Jim Morrison, I don't think had tattoos. Hendrix didn't have tattoos. Bon Scott of AC/DC did. Um, who else? Um, Ozzy Osbourne, of course, but it was still pretty rare. It was a rare thing. Um, and no women had tattoos. So now it's kind of the opposite. Now I think the stat that I saw is maybe 50% of at least 50% of millennial women have a tattoo, and maybe like a quarter of millennial men have a tattoo. So now it's the opposite. Now more women than men have tattoos. Um, let's see here. You don't like going to bars, but that's how you're supposed to meet members of the opposite sex in the West. It's not like the Chinese who have cultural events to go to. You're supposed to get all boozed up. Okay, you got to go to a dark grotto. It's crowded. The floor is sticky. Music is really loud. Like I said, you have to meet women the way gay men met back in the 80s. Or 70s, going to the gay nightclubs with the pounding music. People would take ecstasy, or they take angel dust, or they take poppers or whatever. That's what you got to get drugged up, you got to get liquored up, and you got to proposition strangers. Okay, you got to run game. You've got to be dressed to the nines. You got to peacock. Again, that's all stuff from the gay culture. It's almost as if these think tanks said, wow, gay people are really good consumers. They're very avid consumers. They spend a lot of money on luxury goods. They don't have children, so they don't invest in staple goods. They're obsessed with travel. They're obsessed with fashion. They're obsessed with just consumer products. How do we turn heterosexuals into better consumers? Well, the best way would be to, in a sense, make them gay, make them act as though they're gay, adopt the lifestyle, adopt the habits of gay people so that they spend as much as they make. And they're not spending their money on milk, potatoes, carrots, used clothes from the Salvation Army. No, 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 no. They're focused on traveling. They're focused on designer clothes. It's got to be designer. Okay, designer clothes, $100 for a shirt minimum. The shoes make the man. It's funny, all of these hippies in the 60s who didn't have any money, they were fucking broke, and yet they had pretty nice clothes if you look at it. They had like fashionable clothes, like the colorful shirts and the bell bottoms and stuff. And they got this stuff like secondhand very cheaply. So, and that stuff was actually made in America back then. Now the stuff is made in like fucking Vietnam or Thailand or Cambodia, and it costs $100, $200 for a shirt or for a pair of pants. But now straight people are much better consumers. Okay, before, if you had four children, you really weren't consuming much. You bought staples, you bought groceries, and buying groceries doesn't make Amazon money. Buying groceries doesn't make Apple money. Buying groceries doesn't make Facebook money. It just, you bought groceries at the local supermarket, which probably back then wasn't even a chain. It was a mom and pop store. So that's not good for the big behemoths. Okay, so you got to be spending your money on electronic gadgets. Okay, the newest tablet, the newest smartphone. Because you need that high res camera to take photos of you dining out and eating that scrumptious, decadently scrumptious cupcake. Okay, you have to do that. Uh, I'm sorry, I can't allow any reference to any cartoon other than The Simpsons here. So the Boondocks is out. I'm sorry. It's The Simpsons or nothing. Simpsons or get the fuck out. Um, Somebody says women are a liability these days. It's, for all this talk about men, losing their assets, but how do you reconcile that with the fact that women today are doing much better financially? They're doing much better in terms of educational attainment, in terms of career placement and career advancement. You can say, yes, it's because of diversity, hiring, affirmative action, but that doesn't erase the fact that they are getting the job. They are getting the job. They are getting hired. They are being fast tracked up to the top. They are being fast tracked up to the top. They have these programs at every company where basically people get handpicked to be put on the path to being a manager, and it's basically going to be the coloreds, the gays, and the women. But that doesn't erase the fact that they are going to be making that money. You can question their competence and say they're not very innovative, and that's true. Um, I don't think they are creative, but in today's corporate culture, they're not looking for creative types. They're not looking for iconoclasts. They're looking for worker bees who will follow the rules, play ball, not say anything that will slander or make the company look bad. Um, so how do you reconcile the fact? I mean, how can somebody be a liability if they out earn you by a factor of three or by a factor of four? Um, I mean, I don't think if a woman out earns you by a factor of four, you're going to be ordered to pay alimony to her. I mean, if anything, she's going to regard you as a liability. And I think that's what we're seeing. That's why women are staying away from men. I think it's women who see men today as a liability, not in the sense necessarily of having to pay palimony or whatever the equivalent would be, but um, in terms of holding them down. Okay, it used to be men's when they would settle down after they had sown their wild oats and had some fun, they would settle down and with the old ball and chain. That's how they regarded it. That's how they regarded marriage, as set as oh, I got to get home, guys, the old ball and chain. Well, that's not how women see men. They see men as something to be avoided because men are going to cramp their style. Men are going to hold them back from their dreams, from their dreams, from education. Because okay, say you meet some guy in high school. Well, what if the girl's probably going to get into a better university than the guy. The guy may not go to university at all, so how's that going to work? What's the point in getting into a high school romance if you're just going to up and leave, and you're going to go 1,000 miles away, and he's going to stay at home and be a bagger? That's not going to work. What happens if you meet a guy in undergrad and then you want to go to law school or business school? Again, it's not going to work. um, what happens when you start your career after getting your MBA and you need to work long hours? Maybe you need to take a transfer at your job to a new location. The woman is going to regard the guy as an imposition. The guy is going to be seen as something to hold the woman back from going out, having fun with her girlfriends, because her girlfriends come first. Her girlfriends come first, and she wants to go out to, be, basically like how they think men behaved in the past. I don't really think men were such louts and reprobates that they were out drinking and womanizing, but that's how they've been portrayed. Um, you know, via Mad Men. So that's now what women want to do. Women want to be the men, or at least what they think men used to be, which is a crude distortion anyway. It's not realistic. But that's what they want to do, and they think men are going to hold them back. So now it's women saying, stay away from men. But let me check the comments here. Yeah, but even this talk about children, you're getting way ahead of yourself. I mean, if we're talking late teenage years, 20s, early 30s, children are not even on the table. So women aren't. This talk of child support is way too premature. Women are avoiding men starting in their teenage years. They're avoiding them throughout their 20s into their 30s. So it's not a matter of child support. It's a matter of, I believe, personal and professional freedom for women. Uh, let's see here. Yeah, I think this guy, he has the right order here for how women place things. Themselves, in terms of education and career, putting themselves first, then their pets, then their friends, then their family, and then men. I would say that's the correct order. Yeah, yeah. They always put themselves first in terms of their career, their education, travel. Yeah, maybe you can put travel and eating out there too, somewhere in that order. But they put themselves first. Pets are probably number two. Friends, their female friends, their gay best friends, family. Yep, and then men. You are in last place. That is correct. That is the correct order. Men will always come last. It's like that scene in what was it? You Only Live Twice. James Bond goes to Japan, and he's talking with a Japanese intelligence agent, and he goes, "Mr. Bond, here in Japan, men come first," and it's supposed to be like a tongue-in-cheek double entendre, um, about how men are, it's sort of a patriarchal society. This is from the 60s. Um, but yeah, men are pretty much the last thing on a woman's list nowadays. And it used to be different. Okay, like I said, you can watch movies. Okay, if you watch movies from the 60s or 70s, and it'll be whatever, some movie or a TV show, Brady Bunch, whatever, and it'll be a scene inside the girl's bedroom, right? They'll have posters of their favorite idol that they have a crush on. Okay, in the Brady Bunch, Jan had a crush on Davy Jones of the Monkees, right? I mean, he guest starred on one of their episodes, Davy Jones. Um, you just watch other movies, and like a girl will have a photo of some guy from some band that she liked, and he's it's a poster of him. How many girls had a poster of Jim Morrison, or somebody of the think of Beatlemania, the girls going crazy for the Beatles. I say that doesn't exist anymore. If you look at even girls in college, or even older, they usually do decorate their rooms. They do decorate their rooms with photos, but if you notice, they are all photos of their female friends, their pets, and their family. There's not one photo, one poster of a male love interest, a romantic crush, whatever you want to call it. It's not there. You look at what's on their walls, and it's just photo after photo after photo of them with their uh, female friends. Them doing stuff with their female friends. There's no man to be seen. I mean, I would put posters of some whatever female celebrity, not naked or anything, just from movie stock or whatever that website is where you can get posters from, any movie, that I find attractive. But I'm not seeing that with women today. Okay, that seems to be something from the past. I mean, like I said, I did that video, no goodbye George Glass, where no who had the crush on Davy Jones? Marsh. Who was the older one? Marcia. Was Marcia had the crush on Davy Jones, and then Jan was the middle one. Jan? Fuck, let me look this up. Marcia. Jan Brady. Yeah, Jan Brady was the middle one, and she was so embarrassed that she didn't have a boyfriend that she invented one, George Glass. She just made him up. And so people are asking, like, when are we going to meet your boyfriend? And she had to, like, invent all these excuses. That's not around anymore. Women, I believe, view men as a liability. Women are staying clear of men. They view men as the ball and chain. They want to be able to travel unimpeded. They want to see the world because, with globalism, it's the world is different everywhere. You go to a different country and it's, oh boy, they're totally different. It's not like they have internet there. It's not like they have cell phones. It's not like they have pop music over there. No. It's totally different. Totally different. So they want to focus on travel. They want to be, footloose, fancy free. They don't want to be tied down. They don't want to be tied down. That's what it comes down to. So I don't think that it's men who are wary of women. Okay, I think men were basically kicked to the curb, and it's women who are not interested in men. That's what I think. All of this, MGTOW shit is sort of, it's trying to, it's like some horribly obese, unattractive woman saying, I'm saving myself for marriage. It's like, that's not hard. It's kind of like a joke. Somebody who's hideous saying, I'm not having sex. Well, you're not going to have sex anyway. No, I think men were kicked to the curb, and women are really not interested. They're really not. And I don't see that changing in 5 years. No, I don't see it changing. Uh, Somebody says, they saw this video where this fat white guy married an unattractive Asian and he had a white sex bot. The message I get from that is that he marries and sees foreign women as worthy of companionship and just views white women as sex objects. We'll see all of those videos about sex bots, and I've seen some where it's like a morning news show or something, and it's an interview. The guy brings it's not even a robot. I mean, I wish people would use nomenclature a bit more correctly, because it's not a robot. It's like, when people see like battle bots that are remote controlled, that's not a robot. That's a remote controlled car with, additional features. But anyway, whatever you want to call it, a love doll, whatever. And all of these are basically hit pieces, designed to sow division and rancor between the sexes. And Satanic TFL touched upon this, that when you have people like TFM and they go on and on and on about love dolls and hobbit torsos and things you can lug around inside your luggage, like it's BTK's hit bag, and it's got pieces of humans inside of it. You got, it's like Jeffrey Dahmer's refrigerator. You got a torso, you got a head, you got an arm, you got a hand. Um, this does not reflect well on men. I mean, this it looks downright creepy. It looks downright bizarre to women who see a man with a love doll, a torso, a headless torso, and it's just the body. And you see the same shit in comedy too, TV shows, The Big Bang Theory, right? How there were I used to watch it, so I can kind of recall a few episodes. And remember that episode where Howard Wolowitz makes that remote kissing machine where it's like an interface for people engaged in a long distance relationship to simulate kissing with each other, and he's testing it with Raj, and it, like, as you put your tongue in it, this thing sticks the tongue out on the person on the other end. And he's testing it out with Raj, and then, I mean, it looks gay. Raj is going, "Oh, don't bite my tongue," or something. And then Howard makes the sex robot with the hand, and he gets his dick stuck in it, and the thing powers down. He has to go to the emergency room, and the nurse goes, "Oh, why'd you just build the hand? Where's the rest of it?" And he goes, "I don't know." And she goes, "Oh, because sometimes all that the hand is all you need, right?" So he was using it to jerk off. So all of those things, okay, and then especially when that's a joke, right? That's comedy. But then you see the things, that are ostensibly real, you know, on these news shows, sex bots, and it'll be a female reporter with a shocked or disdainful look on her face, as this guy is talking, or they show the footage of the sex bot factory, and it looks like a slaughterhouse with all of these, naked torsos on hooks on assembly lines. Well, see, you have to understand why the media pushes those types of stories. It's because they're trying to further divide the genders. They're trying to further sow, the seeds of distrust and animosity between men and women. That's what they're trying to do. It's for the same reason they'll come out with these stories. It's they have a long history of doing this, even going back to the sexology studies of Alfred Kinsey, the Kinsey Report, Masters and Johnson. You have to understand they had an agenda. And the agenda was, well, in our study, we found that 25% of teenage males engaged in homosexual activity. You have to understand that these sexologists, they wanted to push an agenda. They were leftists, they were liberals. They had the conclusion that they wanted to reach already in mind before they began the study. Okay. It's like if a conservative think tank, if like a religious think tank, uh, conducted a study, people would be suspicious of it. They would be suspicious of the results. Well, our study found that only 1% of teenage males engaged in homosexual locker room activity. Well, you're questioning Masters and Johnson? You're questioning the Kinsey report? How dare you? So those sexologists, they had an agenda in mind. And the same thing for all of these ads. They'll take an isolated case. What's behind this new disturbing trend? What's behind this new trend that's sweeping the nation? And it'll be like one or two isolated cases. Uh, why do men want to see other men fuck their women? I don't think they do. I think you just kind of found a handful of people, and you're trying to generalize. You're trying to take, well, compared to the fact that it was zero last year, and this year it's a couple hundred couples in the country of several hundred million, I guess it is a large increase. But they try to distort things, um, and they have an agenda, and it's to, like I said, further separate men and women, further erode relations between men and women. Everything, whether it's Me Too, all of these. Um, all of these incidents, Bill Cosby putting his pudding pop in all of these unconscious women. I mean, if you can't trust grandfatherly Bill Cosby, who can you trust? What man can you trust? If not, uh, what was his name on the Cosby Show? The Huxtons, whatever. Yeah. Let me look at the chat here. Yeah, somebody says I still don't get how we went from the violent '90s and early 2000s to the flamboyant 2010s. Yeah, I mean everything really was, you would say, violent, or it celebrated sort of a rawness in the late '90s, early 2000s. Whether it was entertainment, the movies, um, the sports entertainment. I mean, remember how big professional wrestling was in the late '90s, early 2000s, and that stuff was brutal. That stuff was very violent. I mean, when you think about when you think about the cage matches, and I mean people getting seriously injured, people dying, people being just bloodied up in some of these brutal matches. You think of like Sting descending from the rafters, and he had a baseball bat, and he's hitting everybody with it with a bat. Um, it was, even the music, what was popular then? Metal, new metal, um, very aggressive lyrics. I mean, think of what Limp Bizkit's "Break Stuff." I mean, very, what you had bands like Rage Against the Machine. Rage is not a good emotion nowadays. Rage is bad. Rage is condemned. Rage is, well, that's toxic. Rage is what fuels spree shooters. Rage is bad. But in the '90s, one of the most popular bands had Rage in the title. Most of their lyrics were very aggressive and very, violent, you would say. Killing in the name, bullet in the head, uh, how I could just kill a man. Well, that was by Cypress Hill. But you had very kind of violent imagery, violent lyrics. Um, you had things that were very non-PC. I mean, if you watch old episodes of like Mad TV, even in the early 2000s, you had a show called The Whitest Kids You Know, WKUK, and that was even more risque than Mad TV. And then all of that's forbidden. Yeah, you can't offend anybody. You can't offend anybody. Rage is bad. Rage is not healthy. Well, if you look historically, rage as an emotion was celebrated. I mean, you can read like accounts of Viking berserkers who would fight in a frenzied state. That's where the term like to go berserk comes from. It comes from the white Viking word berserker. Um, and it was these Viking warriors they were like in a trance like state. They were so just like so worked up in such a rage that they were like completely oblivious to personal injury. They would fight without shields, and you hear other accounts too of like Captain Blackbeard, the pirate, and you can look up what was his real name? Edward Teach. Let me look this up. Captain Blackbeard. Was his name Edward Teach? Yeah, Edward Teach. Born 1680, died 1718. You can look up how he died, Captain Blackbeard. Um, and he was killed in battle. But if you read of the last battle, he was, I think, drawn into conflict by the British Navy because he was a pirate. They had anti-piracy laws, and basically the British made it out that they had a smaller garrison on board than they really did. And when the ship became close enough, the British mariners or navy men, they boarded Blackbeard's ship, and then like a firefight ensued. They had firearms, they had pistols and swords, and if you actually read of how he died in battle, they say Blackbeard ended up, he was shot something, what was it? Let's see. They examined Teach's body, noting that it had been shot 5 times and cut 20. So how about that? Captain Blackbeard, um, before he died, so he was fighting in battle. He was shot 5 times and cut in 20 places before he died. And then when he died, they cut his head off and put it on the front of their ship. So that's Captain Blackbeard. I mean, You see people today, they get punched or they get slapped and they go down. They just fall over. And then you read these accounts, like I said, the Viking Berserkers or Captain Blackbeard. I mean, can you imagine being shot 5 times and cut 20 before you finally collapse? I mean, people were made of harder stuff back then, but you know, that's toxic. That's toxic. Okay. We can't celebrate things like rage. Okay. That's not healthy. You know, rage was good for when Captain Alvin York, killed dozens of German soldiers in World War I. Rage had a place when American soldiers were storming the beaches of Normandy. Rage was good then, because it helped get rid of the enemy, those nasty fascists. But now that the fascists are gone, now we have to do away with rage. We have to do away with all of the violence. You have to do away with all of that. And now we have to just accept things the way they are. We have to tolerate things. Captain Alvin York didn't tolerate Germans. He was celebrated for killing a good number of them. We celebrate, Saving Private Ryan, storming the beaches of Normandy. Well, why couldn't we just tolerate people who had a different political outlook? Okay, so the Japanese, the Italians, the Germans, they were fascists. Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, can't we tolerate? Aren't we here? Isn't diversity good? Um, and, it's funny when you see the American propaganda against Japanese and Germans, how they made them into caricatures, how they dehumanized them in the propaganda posters. But don't you say anything bad about the Quran. Don't you try to draw a picture of Muhammad. It was totally cool to dehumanize the Japanese and portray them as subhuman rats, to be exterminated. But don't you say anything bad about the religion of peace. Don't you say anything about a Durka Durka in a burqa. Let's see here. Going through the comments. Somebody talks about bank heist. Yeah, but so many of those went south, right? I mean, wasn't that how some member of the Aryan Brotherhood got busted? They were trying to do some armored car heist, and wasn't that the shootout in L.A. from the early '90s? They have like a what was it, 0 hour or 0 day documentary about the Los Angeles, the Hollywood, Southern Hollywood or Hollywood shootout, where these people tried to do a getaway, and they both ended up being shot and killed by the police. Huxtables, there we go. A House of Cosbys. Uh, yeah, somebody says look at WCW and WWF back then, and then look at WWE now. They are now promoting female only pay-per-views. Yeah, I mean, I remember being 10 years old and in my desk at school. This is when you had desks that could open. You would keep your shit inside a desk. And I had a torn out image from a wrestling magazine. So wrestling magazines were popular. You pick them up at the store. And it was a pinout or a, pull out pinup of Sable. Sable or Sunny, one of those two. One of like the divas, the original divas. This is like, ooh, making me sound old. And I kept that hidden in my desk when I was 10 years old. That was the pin out, pull, the pull out of Sable, I think, like in a bathing suit. Um, oh boy, I wonder what would happen today. They would say that display of heterosexuality is disgusting, and we're gonna get rid of that. That'd be taken away from you nowadays. But I kept that in my desk. I remember that. But they were China and that they were there as occasional eye candy, but obviously the core stars were all men like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and that. But yeah, I mean it's very tame, especially when you see people like these pathetic the pathetic wrestlers they have nowadays, like John Cena. it's hard for me to get behind watching a wrestler who's smaller than I am. Okay, John Cena does not look impressive to me physically at all. He's got little tiny T-Rex arms. Uh, he's not impressive. I mean, you compare him to these guys like Hulk Hogan or Kevin Nash or the Giant. He just looks pathetic. He just looks like a nobody. I mean, he looks like if you saw him cutting the grass next door, you would say, "Oh, that landscaper, he's pretty fit. That's a pretty fit landscaper." Uh, does he deserve to be a world famous wrestler? No. I mean, he's smaller than I am, so it's kind of hard for me to see him as impressive. Uh, yeah, I mean, John Cena. Even I didn't even know he was around in 2005. I stopped watching wrestling in '98, I think. No, '99. But I think I want to watch the old classic pay-per-views like Sold Out and uh, what were the other WCW? Sold Out, Halloween Havoc. Those were good. I remember getting those from the video store. Uh, yeah, like Lord of the Rings, like the orc said, the age of man is over. Uh, I don't think John Cena's huge. He looks fucking tiny to me. Yeah, he is physically small framed. Yeah, he looks weird. He looks oversized for his small frame. He has like his arms look T-Rex sized. Uh, yeah, I remember when Rey Mysterio beat Kevin Nash, where Kevin Nash was going to power bomb him, and then Rey Mysterio turned it into a quick pin. That was cool. I mean, it was, it's not real, you would say, but it was a cool quick win when Rey Mysterio beat Kevin Nash and he got out of the power bomb. That was pretty cool. But anyway, um, that's gone on long enough. The point of this video is I believe women are seeing men in a way that basically men are a liability. Men are something to be avoided. Men are going to get in the way of them accomplishing their dreams, accomplishing their goals, their aspirations. Even if it's something that you and I know is, it's stupid. You want to sit in a cubicle? You want to sit in a fucking cubicle and push papers? You want to get a pat on your head from your boss? Oh, that was a good job. That was a good TPS report you filed there. Um, you want they want to travel to these stupid locations. I mean, it's funny how these people try to claim to be enlightened or they claim to be liberal, and yet they still refer to these locations as exotic. I want to travel to exotic places. Well, they're not exotic to the fucking people who live there. Okay, you traveling to Hawaii, that may be exotic for you, but for the people who fucking live there day in and day out, it's their home. Traveling to Africa may be exotic to you, but for the 1.5 billion Africans, it's humdrum. Yeah, they're used to seeing you know, I mean, they don't even see the wildlife. That's out in the fucking sticks. Okay, just like people in this country most people have probably never seen a real cow. Most people in Africa have never seen a real hippo. Um, if you live in Nairobi, you don't see hippos. You have to get in a truck and drive a couple hundred miles. Um, but it's still kind of patronizing. But yeah, I mean, if that's the core message is I don't think men are walking away from women. It's they have been basically walled off, and women don't want really anything to do with men. They think men are going to hold them back. Being in a relationship is going to hold them back. They're gonna relationships are hard. It's hard to maintain a relationship. It's a lot of work, and that's work I could be putting in at the office. I could be putting in overtime. I could be getting that promotion, and that's how they view things. That's the core message. I think it's women staying away from men. And I think they're doing it with the full blessing of their parents. You think parents want to be grandparents? No, no, they want their daughters to be financially successful. Okay, white people don't care that they're not grandparents until they're 78 years old. Okay, in times gone past, people would be grandparents at the age of 32, 33. Now it's more like 78 for white people. And you go on American Renaissance and Breitbart and all this demographic replacement, demographic replacement. Yes, but white people are choosing careers over families. Okay? Other people get on with the getting on at age 16, 17, 18, and other people want to wait till they're 40. So, you can't complain, okay? The future belongs to those who show up. So if you can't, and they just make excuses. They make excuses, okay? White people, if you just admit you like stuff more than you like people, just admit that you like plastic shit, you like vacations, you like expensive dinners, expensive food more than you would like to have your own children. I mean, just admit it. Don't come up with all these excuses. Well, do you know how much student debt I carry? I didn't know student debt prevented you from having a child. Oh, do you know how much a wedding costs? Nobody told you you have to have an expensive $40,000 wedding with the closest 200 friends in attendance. Okay? Nobody said that you don't even have to get married. If you want to have a relationship, um, do you know how much a house costs? Nobody said you have to get an expensive house. What's wrong? I mean, only losers live in trailers. Oh, I guess only white trash in the sticks. They live in trailers, and also super IQ Ashkenazi Jews in the West Bank. They also live in trailers. How about that? The dumbest white people and the smartest Jews. They both have one thing in common. They both live in prefabricated mobile homes. That's weird, right? Like living in trailers, that's for dumb opioid addicted white people and super 130 IQ chess grandmaster Orthodox Jews in the West Bank. Oh, okay. So both sides of the spectrum, they live in cheap, affordable housing. That's interesting. Interesting. It's weird. You malign white people who don't want to spend $200,000 for a house. And at the same time, you tip your fedora to, we all know Ashkenazi Jews have super high verbal IQs. We all know that Orthodox Jews are the smartest. Well, they're not exactly living in mansions with a pool in the backyard in Tel Aviv. The ones with the children are living in fucking trailers. Okay? But listen to people browbeat you, listen to people put you down and say trailer living, that's for losers, that's for losers. Okay, I guess nobody thought to tell Shmuley and his 9 Orthodox children that they're losers. They just, for living in a trailer, they just tell the white person in Indiana, well, you're a loser. The white person in Wisconsin or Illinois, you live in a trailer, you're a loser. But if you're a Jew in the West Bank and you live in a trailer, oh, you're super intelligent. I like how it goes both ways. Gabrielle, you're Jewish, right? Did you get your birthright? Did you get your birthright vacation? Did you get it? Your birthright? Remember, only Jews have birthright. White people don't have a birthright. You didn't build that. Jews get a free trip to Israel, to the kibbutz. It's called birthright. That's the right attitude, Gabriel. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with a relationship. All the things I could do with other people, I could do alone. That's the spirit. That's the white way of thinking we all need to embrace. Solitary existence. I don't need nobody. Let's see. Yeah. These people who besmirch trailer living. I don't know. I've been looking at trailers online, and they seem quite affordable. And you pay a small monthly due for the lot, and you're out in the middle of. You kind of get out away from the coon towns and the niggeropolises. Um, that's good. So but it's always interesting living in trailers. Nobody. I wonder what do they call white people who trailer trash? Trailer trash. Trailer trash. So are Jews who live in the West Bank with their 9 Orthodox children, are they Jewish? Are they trailer trash too? Are they trailer trash? Or is that a moniker that's only applied to white people who live in trailers? You know, seems like it's almost like a manufactured label to guilt people into getting into like $250,000 mortgages for a shell. It's like you can't live in a trailer. You have to get a $250,000 mortgage. What are you thinking here? You can't possibly live in a trailer. Don't you need you need at least 3 bathrooms and at least 4 bedrooms. I know you don't have children, but you need to have multiple bathrooms. I don't know why. I guess it's fun to, take a piss in multiple bathrooms. Like today I'm using bathroom number 1. It's like Monty Hall. Do you want to piss behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3? Uh but yeah, let people guilt you into thinking that living in a trailer means you failed at life. I don't know. I would say the person who's working, who's living to work to provide for a home he's never actually in is the person who's losing. But that's just my way of viewing things. People won't have visitors. People don't have friends. I mean, most of these trailers I fucking look at are actually too big for me. 700 square feet. That's actually larger than the largest apartment I've ever had. The largest apartment I've ever had was like 650. And then a smaller one was 450. And then another one was, aside from the kitchen and the bathroom, my one room I lived in, because there was no living room, it was like a studio apartment, was probably 150 square feet. It was 10 by 15, and I lived comfortably in it. So I mean, when I see 700 square feet, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to buy a bunch of furniture to fill this fucker with. um, but but if you do look at, Craigslist, and you look at like apartments in the Midwest, rural places, you can find studio apartments for like 290 a month. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. I mean, you want to pay 290 a month to live amongst white people with clean air and fresh food? Or do you want to spend $2,900 a month minimum? I mean, I don't even know what type of apartment you could get for 2,900 a month in New York City or San Francisco. Probably you wouldn't live alone at 2,900, or you'd have a long commute. But if you want to live in the heart of the metropolis, Boston, New York City, San Fran, it's probably going to run you at least 3K, maybe 4K. So do you want to spend 300, 400 a month on an apartment, or do you want to spend 4,000? But you get all that diversity, right? You get to walk down the street. And I love these women in New York City with their stiletto heels. You'd see them, with their stiletto heels, and it's like, I wonder how much stuff they've skewered and impaled on their Dolce Gabbana or Louis Vuitton, right? Whatever's the maker of women's shoes, Louis Vuitton. Um, I mean, you could just look down at the street, and you would see cockroaches. You would be walking past the mountain of trash, and you would have a mouse or a rat dart out. You'd be waiting for the subway, and you would look onto the tracks, and you would see these big Norwegian rats, like the big fucking huge rats running across the tracks. Um, there's so much dog shit on the streets of New York too, because everybody has a dog, but there's no grass. So there's literally dog shit everywhere on the sidewalk. So you have very expensive high-heeled shoes, and you've just covered your heel in dog shit, rat piss, and in a cockroach. It's like a nice kebab. But let me look at the chat here. Jews are white because they mix with Europeans. A lot of them now have blonde hair and blue eyes. I know, and it's made it very difficult for us to keep an eye out on who's a member of the tribe and who we can trust. It's made it very difficult. Uh, And I think people always say living in an urban areas it's better for dating. You have a greater variety, greater choice. There are more women. It's densely populated. I never really experienced it. I mean, I did date a little bit in New York, but it wasn't exactly like I was successful. It wasn't like I was getting the types of women I actually found attractive. I was kind of getting what I could get. And you have to understand in these urban areas, they're filled with women who are focused on their careers. Either they're domestic, meaning they were native New Yorkers or native wherever, or they were disaffected, dissatisfied with wherever they came from, some small town in the Midwest. They regarded where they came from as, their modest upbringing in some podunk town. They wanted to get away from that, so they moved to the Emerald City. And again, that's showing their character. It shows that they don't like simple living. They want to be living that Sex in the City lifestyle. They want to be going out for drinks. So, anybody that you find in an urban area, they consciously decided to either remain there or move there. So they're not really conducive. They're not really of the mindset to be in a relationship anyway. Um, it's interesting how parents always have expectations or kind of career goals for their children, and like people always say, like there's a good place to raise children. You don't want to raise your children in a place like New York City. You don't want to raise your child in San Francisco. You want to get out, into the countryside, a small town, the suburbs. That's where children can play. And then what is their goal for their children? Their goal is that their children will grow up, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a Wall Street hedge fund manager, become very successful financially, and then move to one of those hellholes that they didn't want to raise their child in the first place. So the idea is kind of like parents want their children to turn their backs on their own upbringing. Like, the way I grew up, like when we would eat out, it would be at a place like, you know, we would go to, McDonald's. That was something, Um, if you were student of the month, you got a free value meal, or whatever deluxe meal at McDonald's. Um, going to Popeye's Chicken, going to Long John Silver's. That's what you would consider, white trash food or whatever. But that's what I grew up on. And now, oh, you're successful. You can't eat there. And all of these like conferences, that I go to, or you'd have a department meeting or whatever, right? And it would never be anything like that. It would never be, hey, let's just get some burgers in here. Let's get some fried chicken. Let's get some chicken wings here, whatever. Just something like that. It would always be, let's have Mediterranean food. And it's like all this stuff that I don't want. It's like a fucking goat kebab, lamb kebab. It's like, and it's expensive too. And it's like you're supposed to just turn your back on everything that you actually liked. Um, I mean, like where I grew up, people would always drink Budweiser, Old Milwaukee, Old Style beer, Red Dog, like cheap beer that tasted like beer. And now it's like, whoa, whoa, you can't. It's not Miller time. It's not Miller time. You can't drink that stuff. You've got to get a craft brew. You've got to get something that costs, 12, $15 a bottle. So that's the kind of change in mindset, because people are gonna look at you funny, and you've got to be consistent. If you're a consultant or you're somebody of the professional class, well, it just won't do if you live in a trailer and you drive an old beater and you drink your Pabst Blue Ribbon. No, 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 no. You have to be going out for a nice wheat beer with your diverse coworkers after work. That's what you have to do. You have to spend a lot of money eating out. You have to go to those foodie establishments. And then because your life is so meaningless and your job is so meaningless, you have to afterward write a very extensive, a very long winded review of that place you just ate at. And maybe you're going to take a few photographs of your food and then you're going to upload it to social media. That thought never occurred to us. Like, when I would be eating at McDonald's or KFC or Popeyes or Long John Silver's, you'd never take a picture of, okay, Here are my hush puppies. Here's another photograph of my hush puppies. And here's yet another photograph of me enjoying my hush puppies. Never would happen. But with these establishments, yeah, that's what you do. You always take a photo before you enjoy your decadent. It's got to be decadent. Everything's got to be decadent. It's weird. It's like wires have gotten crossed inside of our heads. It's like sex and food. It's like that episode of Seinfeld where George he basically starts getting aroused when he eats because he's eating during sex, and so he like starts getting flushed and he starts like getting an erection when he because he's like conditioned himself to associate food with sex. If you're describing food as decadent and sinful, oh, there's something wrong. There's something wrong there if you're describing food in a way that's typically reserved for like sexual actions. That's kind of weird. Um, but Yeah, it's weird. It's like parents actually want their children to forsake their own upbringing. Like, yes, I know we didn't have much growing up, but now I want you to basically be what is the term, an apostate, an apostate, right? And to renounce the way that you were brought up. And now I want you, as my child, to be dining out at oh, the Michelin rated restaurants. Well, to like 90% of Americans, Michelin means the Michelin man, the tire man, the white mascot with all the tires. No, no, no. Michelin means fancy, swanky restaurants. You've got to eat, you got to eat at those Michelin rated restaurants. You got to consult the Zagat guide. You got to consult it before you eat out. Um, but all of this obsession with where to eat, this didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. 15, 20 years ago, okay, you're going to go to the Ponderosa Steakhouse. You're going to go to Golden Corral. You're going to go to Old Country Buffet. Oh, okay. But now, no, 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 you can't eat there. You can't eat there. No, no, you have to go to a fancy, fancy place, and you have to spend a lot of money. Pizza Hut. No, 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 no. We're gonna have a pizza, and it's going to be with it's going to be made with like goat cheese for some reason. And we're going to like undercook it. And we're just going to like cut a tomato in two pieces and we're just going to put the tomato on top. We're not going to dice the tomato because that would be too conventional. We're just going to slice it into like maybe three pieces and put it on the pizza. It's going to be a flatbread pizza. A sandwich. What's that? No, 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 no. We sell paninis here, mister. Okay. Paninis. Okay. No sandwiches. Get the fuck out of here. Sandwich. No, 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 no. Paninis. Let's see here. Uh, but I mean, I think that's the idea, is to just get people to condition them to be better consumers. Um, just to consume more, especially when it comes to, stuff that's it's not an investment. It's not a one-time deal. It's not like, you're buying a video game console and it lasts you 5 years. It's stuff that you have to get over and over again. Something that you don't buy alcohol, you rent it, you piss it away. So you go out one night to eat, you have to go out the next day, you have to go out for lunch, you have to go out for dinner. It's That's where the money comes from, not from well, you bought a car and it lasts you 20 years. No, no, the money comes from things that people have to do over and over every day. Yeah, see, I'm not the only person who notices this. Cross the line 1000, people look uglier and uglier. Yeah, most people don't talk about this though. They just no, you notice too much if you comment. Like, I can look at photographs of whatever, family photographs, of old, relatives from 1900 compared to today, or people of, strangers, newscasters, whatever, athletes, whatever you want to do. And people are definitely getting uglier. Um, but I think it's just to condition people to be consumers, because if you condition them to spend a lot, okay, if you condition them that they have to go out to eat at expensive restaurants every day, that keeps them tied to their career. It's like these dinosaurs that got so big that they had to spend the whole day foraging. They had, these brontosauruses or seismosauruses that were like 150 tons with the big long necks, and they got so fucking big that in order to maintain their existence, they had to spend the whole day foraging and eating plants. And that's kind of where modern people are at. They've been conditioned to such a lifestyle that they spend so much that they get tied to their career. And they have to make $100,000 a year just to keep up with their expenses because they're spending so much. They believe they have to spend money on eating out. They have to spend money on that microbrew. They have to spend money on that vacation. They've been conditioned to think they have to do these things. Hell, they have you people conditioned to think you actually have to spend money on your own health care. No, you don't. Do you not have you never been to the emergency room and they have a sign prominently displayed? We we are obligated to treat you regardless of your ability or inability to pay for services rendered. It's just a triage system. It just means you may have to wait a while. People who are, come in with a gunshot wound will get treated before you do if you're there for a headache or you're there for a stomach ache or whatever, but you will be treated. Moreover, you will actually receive better treatment at the ER than you will from your primary care doctor, because when you go to see your primary care doctor, you don't actually see a doctor. You see the physician's assistant. Whereas when you go to the emergency room, you're seeing a legitimate doctor. And no, you even if you have no money, there you still get health care. They are still obligated to treat you. And that's when people will come up, well, I can't have a child. Do you know how much the delivery costs are in the maternity ward? Well, if you're stupid and you behave like a responsible white person, yes, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. But if you behave like those allegedly stupid Mexicanos, they just go to the emergency room and they get their little beaner baby delivered free of charge. It costs them nothing. So who's the fool? I mean, who really has the higher IQ here? The white people who are spending $30,000 on something that the Mexicans, the illegal Mexicans, get for free? I mean, who's being the idiot here? Yeah, and I don't get this attitude of it's like the white way of doing things. You got to get out of debt. You got to square away your affairs. You can't be a mooch. You can't mooch off of people. You can't mooch off the government. Why? You have people who aren't even citizens who mooch off the government here. They feel it's their right to mooch off the government. Why wouldn't you? If you qualify, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you get as much free stuff as you want? Like this idea of being responsible. Um, this may have worked in a time where everybody behaved as gentlemen. It was the Enlightenment era. Everybody wore their powdered wig, and everybody was, they had a sense of honor about themselves. Then it would have worked, okay? We don't live in that era anymore. We live in a time where basically you have a bunch of rats fighting over a piece of stale bread. If you don't get in there, you're going to be shut out, okay? It's like when a sow, when a mother pig has a litter or whatever of piglets, and one is the runt of the litter, and the little runt can't fight his way in amongst the other baby pigs to get at the teat, and he starves to death. Well, if you're the runt of the litter, you better get in there. You better get in there and get some milk because otherwise you're going to be shut out. Um, so yeah, I mean, this idea that white people always have, like, do you know how much healthcare is? No, no, nobody put a gun to your head and said you have to pay for it. You are choosing to do the responsible thing. Well, that's mighty white of you. Nobody told you you have to do it that way. Nobody told you you have to spend $30,000 on a wedding. Okay, to have people stare at you, and so what? So that you can be married by the black lesbian minister of your Lutheran church? I mean, that's like a fucking joke. This is a sacred day. How dare you try to cheapen my daughter's my princess's day, my princess's day in the sun. This is a sacred day. Show some reverence. Show some respect to the Reverend Jackson, the honorable black lesbian Lutheran minister. Right? Like these people who want to have the Church of England wedding. It's like it's gonna be some fucking lesbian bishop marrying you. It's like um yeah, it's just like this weird hodgepodge, this weird tapestry of conflicting values. It's like you want to have this white wedding Billy Idol ceremony, but it's what is the term? It's oh come on, what is the term? I'm blanking here. It's presided over. It's presided over by some like African, some trans lesbian African, reverend. I mean, it's like some weird steampunk, future where it's just like a hodgepodge of past and present. And you're going to wear the white wedding veil, but neither of us is a virgin. We've each been divorced. You have two kids, and the reverend is a fucking lesbian. I mean, none of this makes sense here. Um, but yeah, it's like millennials. They just have these excuses. Well, do you know how much student debt I have? Like, I didn't know, you know, being saddled with debt, rendered you sterile. I didn't know it was an alternative form of vasectomy. Um, well, do you know how much it costs to have a child delivered? Yeah, $0. It costs you exactly $0 if you go to the emergency room. What do you think they're going to do? They'll give you a pair of scissors and say, "Cut the umbilical cord yourself, you poor bastard." No, no. Um, the white people or modern day people in general, they just build up all of these walls of their own making. Well, we can't get married. We don't have money for a wedding. Then I guess you should skip the wedding. What if you really want to be together, right? Like if you really love each other, why are you having a wedding ceremony at all? It shouldn't matter what I mean, you're just inviting like coworkers. You're inviting Sandeep from work. You're inviting Jamal from work. Like these aren't even your friends. These aren't even your family. These are barely people you know. And well, it costs $30,000 for a wedding. Well, it costs nothing to be in a relationship. You're just imposing these things upon yourself. Um, let's see here. Yeah, immigrants know exactly how to apply for every possible form of welfare, while natives don't even know what kind of welfare services are out there. And keep in mind, immigrants know how to do that, yet you, as a white person, you have white entitlement. You have white entitlement. It's funny, people move to this country and they feel entitled to, benefits, welfare benefits, handouts from the European governments, from the North American governments. We have officials in this country who are, foreign born. They moved here from Somalia. They moved here from Cameroon. Um, the same thing in England. Or Germany, you have Turks who have their own political party within Germany. And yet, are Germans active in Turkey? We have Chinese people here who basically run the universities. I mean, the professors uh, are, pretty much, if you look at any university, most departments, especially in STEM or the hard sciences, they're dominated by Chinese nationals. And do you think that means white people are working over at Tsinghua University or Peking University? No, no, they're not. So there's no reciprocity. Only non-whites move to white countries and expect white people to accommodate them. Well, you can't serve pork in the classroom. We want halal food. We want kosher food. We want this. Nobody moves to Israel and say, hey, I don't want any of this kosher shit. No white person moves to a Muslim country and, says, hey, where's the liquor at? Okay. Uh, anytime you hear of a white person going to work, like in the United Arab Emirates, to make money, they move to the UAE or they move to Brunei or any of these like Gulf oil states, um, they have to abide by certain codes of conduct. They can't dress provocatively. They have to dress conservatively. They can't drink alcohol. So white people conform to the norms when they move abroad, and yet everybody else, whether they're Asian, Middle Eastern, African, they move here and expect everybody to accommodate them instead of shedding their previous way of doing things. Okay, like I would probably have my hand chopped off if I moved to Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates to work as an engineer, and they caught me, with a couple bottles of Jaeger, and I was just, I was getting pissed drunk and, staggering down the streets. I'd probably get, I'd probably face repercussions for that. But, everybody, they have a true entitlement mentality. They believe America exists to serve them. They believe European institutions exist to cater to them, to serve them, etc. So who really has the entitled mindset? Let's see here. Yeah, it's just these. Somebody says, "Why do we need a $30,000 wedding? If it's real, the presentation doesn't matter." Uh, oh, like I said, I always have to quote from things that I always have in my mind. Like, what is that Kid Rock song? Where it ends. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. If it uh, if it sounds good, you'll listen to it. But if it's what is it? But if you feel it, or no, it goes, but if it's real, you'll feel it. That's what is the end of that song? Let me look that up for you guys. Yeah, it's on Brainy Quote of all places. If it looks good, you'll see it. If it sounds good, you'll hear it. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. But if it's real, you'll feel it. What song is that from? Uh, fuck. What song is that from? It's off the Devil Without a Cause album. Uh, Oh, I think it's off of my no, actually it's History of Rock album, I think. My Oedipus Complex. But anyway, sorry, I sometimes do that. If something's in my mind, I always have to share it. Have you watched Sam Hyde's Twitter stand up? No, what is that? I mean, they shut down his $1 Million Extreme YouTube channel. I haven't seen much of Sam Hyde recently. I mean, I watched $1 Million Extreme Presents World Peace. I love that, and I've seen some of his YouTube videos like Paradigm Shift 2070 and some of his other shorter videos, but he was banned from Twitter, right? So what's his Twitter stand up? Let me look this up. Is it just one of his, like he's in a comedy club? He's in a comedy club, and he did some provocative stuff. Like one time, he just got up on stage and he read a bunch of stats from like the CDC about gay people. And he goes, "Did you know that patient zero had over 1,000 sexual partners?" And then he goes into like all the other like things that are verboten to talk about, but that are true. That are true. And all these people just walked out on him. And he was like doing it in like Brooklyn or something. Uh, but anyway, I think I've been going long enough. Um, yeah, it's already 4:15. Um, anyway, I'm gonna punch out. Thank you for watching.